Everything Old is New Again, America's entertainment pop culture talk show.
It may well possess a rudimentary intelligence.
I'm trying to think, but nothing happens.
Felt a great disturbance in the force.
Hello, I'm Mr. Red.
Come on, Mark, like a job for me.
Where's the goodies? Leave the gun. Take the cannoli.
I bet you wouldn't have done anything like this if Mom and Dad were here.
You filthy criminal.
Excuse me while I whip this out.
Go ahead. Make my day.
Here are your hosts, Douglas Viviani and David Cohen.
So what are you doing here?
I live here. This is my home. I built this place. You weren't here for that, but some of us didn't just show up.
Shut your damn mouth! You really gonna stand there and pretend you didn't try to sell us out, sell this place out? To the saviors?
I was working for the side of sanity. I was working for peace.
You threatened to kick people out.
I tried to save lives. Now those people are cannon fodder.
Those people are fighting for a better life.
There we go. Everything Old is New Again here, playing a clip from The Walking Dead. Sans David Cohen, but that's okay because we have a very special guest star, someone that I know you know from his many, many appearances on television and the movies. Most recently, you just heard him. If you're a fan of The Walking Dead, you know Xander Berkeley as Gregory, the former leader, or the leader, depending upon where you are in the binge at this point, of the Hilltop. He's also known as Sheriff Thomas McAllister on The Mentalist, George Mason in 24, Percy Rose on Nikita, and that's just on TV, but in film. Terminator 2, he's been in, Air Force One, Sid and Nancy, of course, and Heat with Pacino, and we've got lots to talk about, but there's more. Xander Berkeley is a painter, a sculptor as well. His work can be seen on the website, The Real Xander Berkeley, BERKELEY.com. We will certainly explore that and a little bit later on the show and more with Xander Berkeley. Xander Berkeley, welcome to Everything Old is New Again.
Well, thank you. It's nice to be here.
That's nice to hear. It's nice to be in anywhere at this point in time. We're passing some time and having some great fun on the radio, bringing some great special guests like yourself. And let's just start with The Walking Dead just for the moment here. Let's talk about heroes versus villains. So I used to watch these old John Wayne movies. They weren't old at the time when they came out with, you had Eli Wallach and Forrest Tucker, Ed Asner, and the Cowboys. He had Bruce Dern to act opposite as the villain. So the villain, to me, needs a strong... Well, the villain itself needs to be strong to have the hero stand out and be even stronger, if that makes sense, to be a hero. And you've played the bad guy on a lot of shows, a person that a lot of people have come to love to hate, if you will. And I think it might take quite a bit of skill to get noticed, and you need to have and establish yourself with some gravitas right off the bat as a guest star on a television show or in a series where you've got these series regulars that people know, and you're coming on board as the villain, let's say, for the week or maybe for a season, and people may not necessarily know you as a character. How do you build up immediately that gravitas to stand up as the villain against established actors in a series that the audience has already come to know? If you understand what I'm saying, you need to be strong as a villain, but you got to do that right away because you don't have the time of the series of being built up as these regular characters have been.
Yeah, I mean, and sometimes I've played the villain like in Nikita with Percy from day one, where it's established in the pilot. But you're right, when you come into a thing that's a moving vehicle that is going at a good speed and has attracted the eye of many, as say The Walking Dead had done. It's a certain challenge. It's something that I've done a lot of, so perhaps I have the advantage of having done it to build the confidence to do it properly in a situation like that. Coming onto a set, I can remember it early on. I became the sheriff on CSI Las Vegas for a little while, and I had just finished with 24 as a series regular, and I remember being struck then that, wow, it's like everybody knows who they're sitting with at lunch, and, you know, everybody's got relationships, and you're coming in and you feel like the new kid in school with your tray. Oh, where am I going to sit? Well, I guess I'll go sit with hair and makeup. They know me. They saw me in the trailer this morning. And you feel like the little Nelly boy that's sitting over there with hair and makeup. Like, well, you know, it's just, it puts you right back in that 7th grade kind of state of semi-insecurity. If you're not sure of yourself, it can play on that. And, you know, I've gone on to sets. I can remember, you know, I'd be doing pretty big movies and working with, you know, my childhood heroes, and they had treated me with great respect, and they were glad that, you know, they'd seen me in other things and knew that I tended to make guys like them look good. And so they were happy to see me on board, and you get treated with respect, and that's always a confidence builder when, you know, you work with huge stars and they're glad to have you there, and you get along and you hit it off. But then I can remember going TV, because these shows, they're kind of like a little bubble. You know, now Walking Dead had earned the right to feel pretty good about itself. But other shows, like, they come and they go. And I can remember, you know, in the 80s and 90s, like, I'd be off in foreign countries working with amazing actors on location and big filmmakers. And then I'd come back and I'd do some TV show. I'd never seen any of these people. And yet they were treating you because they believed the hype and the press that was, you know, they were doing a lot of PR for the show. And every time that they think that their show was either going to be or already was a huge hit and would be around forever. And, you know, you have a different perspective coming in, and they're going to be gone in a blink. Right. And these people are lucky to have these jobs. And, you know, they should always treat people coming in with respect. And I'll say right off the bat, Andrew Lincoln gets that. He got that. And, you know, in my opening scene with the show was the scene I first appear, you know, which isn't always the case. Sometimes you got to go out of order. And it just so happened that the opening scene that I did was my opening scene on the show, where I come out and they're all in the foyer, and I just come out of my study and, Jesus, you're back, you know, and then on to meeting all of them. And you've got company. And, you know, I look around the room and take them all in, and I basically have to tell them to go clean up because they're filthy. And I run a tight ship, and it's clean here, and this is my house, and you're tracking things in, and you know, so Jesus will show you where to go get cleaned up, and then come back, and we'll have a little chat, and you know, Andrew, as Rick says, you know, we're good. And I just on the first rehearsal, I just made the impulse to get right up in his grill and go, like I said, Jesus will show you where to go get cleaned up, and then we'll meet back down here later, right in his face, and like quiet in his ear and in his face. And, you know, I just thought that was just my instinct on doing it. And I waited, and I went back to one after okay, let's just take it again, because there were a lot of logistics of people coming into the room, and I was waiting because, you know, ordinarily that's when the director will come in and go, you can't get that close to our leading man. He would kill you. You know, he's the kind of guy that would just, he wouldn't, no, can't do that. And there's a lot of these unspoken rules. And I've been around long enough to where I go from the first rehearsal, I try to push the limits to see how far I can go. And instead of the director coming in, curtailing me, Andrew comes in and hugs me and lifts me off the ground, spins me around 3 times, and goes, "I'm so glad you're doing it." and because he saw that, you know, the role required that I come in and take over. And first of all, his vanity wasn't superseding his storytelling. And a lot of times, I got to say, you know, because we're going to come back to this as a villain, you have to be willing, especially a villain. You know, Gregory hardly even qualifies. I'm an antagonist in that show. You know, it's a lot easier to play a real villain, I'll tell you the truth. It requires a tremendous sacrificing of vanity to play a character like a Gregory, essentially. But it's risk for the mill, and is, as you said, a way to make a foil to make others look stronger and better and smarter and cooler and braver. And but with Andrew just coming in and knowing that I needed to come in and take over and have a lot of confidence, he supported that. And it was great.
So it's a function of who you're acting with, of course, and that is a great example there. We'll talk a little bit about 24 and some movies and a lot more about artwork and so forth with Xander Berkeley right here, right now on Everything Old is New Again. Come on back. You don't want to miss this. Go to let me get it straight now. TheRealXanderBerkeley.com, and you will get an eye view of what's going on with his artwork. And we'll talk about that in another section. Really fun, great stuff. We'll be back right at this, and Everything Old's New Again.
You're listening to Everything Old is New Again, America's entertainment pop culture talk show with Douglas Viviani and David Cohen.
Hi, this is Alan Alda, and you're listening to Everything Old is New Again with Douglas Viviani and David Cohen.
Yes, we're back here. Unfortunately, David's not here, but I have a great special guest host, if you will, this week, Xander Berkeley, who is, you know him from 24 and just and so many other shows on the television that you're just going to have a great time listening and peeling the onion if you're here behind the scenes. Go to, by the way, therealxanderberkeley.com, and you'll get a nice view as to what he's also doing with respect to art, painted art and sculpture, and we'll get back to that in a moment. I played a little bit there of Alan Alda as a return, not necessarily just to show off to you, if you will, but if we go back to 1981, you did appear on a MASH episode as a Marine. So we're going to say it wasn't a huge part of course, the character didn't even have a name, but the episode, if we want to look at that, is Give 'Em Hell, Hawkeye. I mention that because it's sort of a segue in some ways in that, of course, that show was serious but had humor in it as well. Many of your characters, especially the character on 24, George Mason, and in The Walking Dead, did slip in one-liners and have a bit of humor to him as well. And I don't think it's necessarily related to your appearance on MASH, but sort of a segue in bringing humor to a character. Does that develop through your presentation of the character, or is it written for you, or a combination of them? In other words, you're doing these villains or these shady characters a lot of the time, but they still have a sense of humor. They're still a well-rounded person. They don't think of evil thoughts every day, every minute of the day, you know. And I think that's so smart to do. I wonder, does it come from your development of that character, or is it straight from the writers, or maybe a combination?
No, it's sometimes it's in the writing, like it was in The Walking Dead, because I had established that was sort of my milieu. I had brought it. I was a guest star in the original pilot of 24, and there wasn't a lot there, and so I kind of asked in advance, can I play with this a little bit? And they said, yeah, sure. We're just happy to have you come along. And I chose to, instead of making just a gratuitous kind of adversary, to give him a center of being, a center of gravity, and to bring some gravitas, but at the same time to bring some levity. And because people in tough, serious jobs, one of the big mistakes I think they make in film and television a lot is, just like what you're saying, they don't think bad thoughts all the time. First of all, everybody, no matter who they are, thinks they're doing the right thing for themselves, if not for others. And then generally speaking, if they're in dangerous circumstances, there's still a certain amount of gallows humor or nervous energy that is counterbalanced by comic energy and a sense of humor. And I've always felt like that just helps make it feel more real, and it also makes it more entertaining, more believable, and more fun. And so I like to bring a little irony, a little cryptic, cynical humor to a guy like that, because it seems like with George Mason in the beginning, for this guy to be doing and hiding money and stuff like that, he's kind of got to be a little cynical. Right. And so instead of just making him nasty, making him like, I don't care, it's all right. Give him a little something. And they liked that. And then they started writing for that. And, then they gave me a lot of freedom to improvise and, embroider some of that to take it further. It's a collaboration a lot.
And I'll tell you, there's a lot of shows, we've interviewed some Star Trek people and some other shows that are strictly by the book, by the script, and don't give you that option. And not saying it's necessarily an option, but you made it because I would say made it happen, at least in those two roles and others, I think because you have a good sense of humor and you sort of bring that in an experimentation, if you will, in the beginning, and maybe the writers then say, you know what, this is working, let's write to this, I guess is what you're saying in some ways, huh?
Yeah, well, and it's funny because I was brought out from New York as a young actor, and I'd done a lot of comedy on stage, and it was sort of assumed that I was going to end up sort of doing a sitcom. And in a way, I balked at that because I wanted to be taken seriously as an actor and I didn't want to just be like a clown. And so I targeted bad guy roles. Like my first movie was Mommy Dearest, and that wasn't a comedy. It wasn't supposed to be. And the opportunity, once you get the seal of approval put on your forehead, like you don't turn into a zucchini in front of a camera. Okay, we can put him in other things now. It's a rite of passage getting that first film. And then right away I said, well, look, they need a bad guy on every episode of television. I'd spent years training as an actor in the theater, and I'd been in, it was one play after the next for 10 years by the time I was 25 years old. And that's how old I was when I did Homage, 24, 25. And I just said, I want to get used to cameras. And if I can get paid to learn how to do that, that'd be great. So let's go for TV. Because I thought these things are disposable. Nobody's ever going to see the show again after it airs. Maybe once or twice. I didn't know that 40 years later, it's still there to haunt me.
Exactly.
But it seemed like a good opportunity, and that they needed a bad guy on every show, and they always had to, bring him to justice and take him away by the end, and on to the next. And so I had a lot of accents up my sleeve, a lot of behavioral abilities to morph, and I was a makeup artist, and since from a very young age because of the crossover from the artwork. And so I liked to see also in that period of time how far I could go in terms of being a chameleon and adapting and transforming from one role to the next. And then in the process, I think I just kind of got, in everybody's head as a good bad guy, and kept going there. And then it was harder for people to perceive me as anything but if you watch a movie like The Maestro, Maestro, I finally get to play a good guy. Right. And I can do it, I can be likable.
And I love the idea that you do things that are very seen, so to speak, very, it's on television, it's in your face, but also these days we've got Blockbuster after Blockbuster. It seems to be the only thing that's in the movies, and I love the idea that you're very interested in independent productions and theater that movies. But I say theater as a Freudian slip in that I think the independent movies are bringing more gravitas to drama, to characterization. Believe me, I love the Avengers. Everyone listening knows I love all that stuff, but it has its place. I also like to hear and see what's going on in people's minds and real life dramas or documentaries, so to speak, or life stories like The Maestro was. That's important work too. And I'm going to ask you, I guess, I presume you agree on some level, but why do you like to do these independent movies?
Well, that's really where my heart is. At the end of the day, I did a movie called Sid and Nancy, which you referenced in the beginning, pretty early in my career. I let it sort of be a game changer for me because I felt like first of all, I got to improvise in reworking the script with Gary and Alex and Chloe and Roger Deakins. We would sit and rehearse a scene the day before we would shoot it. And, at the end of the day's work, we would all hang out a little bit longer and just go over the material for the following day. And they were shooting it in more or less chronological sequence. So it's always a great luxury. So you can adapt things when the characters are gaining weight, as theirs had done, not physically, but aesthetic weight, reality weight. And things aren't adding up in the script as originally written. They can take it apart and go, well, what do we need to change here? that's always been my favorite way of working in a lot of ways. And we did a lot of that on 24 because the scripts had to change because, 9/11 happened when we were shooting the first episode back after the pilot. And they had to change the pilot because it was just way too close. And a lot of the terrorist storylines were just a little disturbingly close. And so there was a lot of, we had to think on our feet, and they were able to take advantage of actors like myself that are pretty good on our feet as improvisers, and taking a sort of more or less of a stark outline and fleshing it out. And a lot of the filmmakers, Mike Figgis, I did 4 films with, from Internal Affairs to Leaving Las Vegas to One Night Stand to Time Code, and in all of them I improvised almost every word of what I spoke. And he knew that about me because he gleaned it from Sid and Nancy and from the stuff I'd done with Alex, and both British filmmakers, great filmmakers, independent filmmakers, and those kinds of films just to me were so exciting as part of the creative process that I always yearn for more, and a lot of times to do smaller budget independent films gives you that freedom.
And The Maestro is definitely one to see. It really is a nice movie. Like, there are movies that let me put it this way. There are these documentary kind of movies, and they're just kind of flat, and they just kind of like walk the line, so to speak, and they tell you the story. And there are others that really do this well, where it's sort of a person you don't know anyway, but still with Maestro. But, it goes beyond, and you really get to see what's going on. And I think it's like a play, honestly, in the movies, if that makes any sense. You're evaluating and learning what the person's thinking and what they're going through, more than just seeing the chronologically of what the things went on in their life, if that makes sense, And
in part, that's a function of spending a couple of weeks with the director every day, improvising and, working with the other actors and seeing how you flesh out a script, and having a producer and a director that are open to and eager to take advantage of actors who have an ear for dialogue and can improvise in the vernacular of their character. And yeah, that one's on Amazon Prime, and there's another one that I did a while back, again, fairly obscure. It was a web series in the very beginning with Hulu, at their very beginning, called The Booth at the End, and that's just another one where, by it being a smaller scale project, you can bring a lot more of your ideas to bear.
And it's worthwhile looking those up and more. We'll be back right here on Everything Old is New Again with Xander Berkeley, therealxanderberkeley.com. Right after this, Everything Old is New Again.
Now, back to America's entertainment pop culture talk show. Everything Old is New Again with Douglas Viviani and David Cohen.
Radioactive material.
What kind of radioactive material?
They're still doing field analysis on it. I don't know.
Was anyone exposed?
All of them in the back, the containment.
They're putting this through decon now. Precautionary measure.
Let's get a move on it.
Look, Tony, we have 3 dead bodies. We send you photos and fingerprints on them. See if they match up with anybody on our watch list.
Welcome back to Everything Old is New Again. A rather serious, difficult situation for George Mason in 24. And we're here with Xander Berkeley, who was the performer for that character, of course. And he has been in so many projects that I count up here. I wanted to do have 73 different television shows that this gentleman's appeared on, and it's amazing. That's just television alone, not to mention all the movies, which we'll talk about in a moment, or the next section. But that shows that the gentleman has, I think, a passion for acting. But just as he brings well-rounded characters, mostly villains, but not always, well-rounded characters to the screen, I think the passion to do that also is expressed in your artwork. And I wonder, can you tell us a little bit about how or when you started and what started you with art to begin with?
My father was a painter and an illustrator, a book illustrator, who went on to become head of the art department for a publishing company, but always kept doing artwork and did woodcuts. He's a printmaker and a great artist, and he encouraged from day one. We get art supplies every birthday and Christmas, in addition to whatever else, and he even saw that I was into the theater. I had impulses to play characters from very early on. My mom knew how to sew and put a costume together, and he saw that sometimes I was doing these stage fights and stuff like that, and that I was working with burnt cork and ketchup. So he got me a good makeup kit and the Richard Corson book on stage makeup, and I started into that pretty early on, and that was my way of finding a character a lot of times. And I was a mask maker in the theater from a very young age on, and so there were crossovers, and I was always doing art. My older sister was the artist. She was a couple of years older and had staked out that turf pretty clearly. And so I always kept doing it. I was always drawing, but I didn't start painting again until later. I did a series of paintings in high school, and they got put into a big, they were accepted into some collection thing that was a presentation, and they were stolen, and that rather traumatized me at the time. And I didn't go back to painting. I continued to sculpt, and I sculpted in college, and I worked in bronze and in all kinds of wood and stone, and continued to work with clay and all kinds of other things forever. But it wasn't until I was a little bit older that I got back into painting, and I never stopped drawing. It was always a thing. As an actor, there was a great crossover between studying people and being given an excuse to stare at them and actually, draw them in, as it were, through drawing, and download data about human behavior and gesture and body language. And just by drawing, if I ever got busted, if I was in a cafe and somebody would say, "Hey, what are you doing over there?" "Well, I'm drawing." "You want to hear?" I'd give the drawing away, and then we were cool. And there were other times it was even kind of more confrontational, but for the most part it was curiosity. And if ever I got caught, I'd give people the drawing, and they were happy and we were good. But it's just a way that and on location when I was working as an actor, or whether waiting for a job, I never was idle. I was always active and being creative on my own terms, not having to wait for someone else to determine how or when I would be creative. I was content, and that took a lot of the psychic pressure off of getting another job, and I think it helped me in many ways. But it also has a direct crossover in terms of the study of human behavior and ultimately preparing me to be a director, which I'm going to be when I grow up.
How about that? And lots of your work are of characters, or of character. What do you call them? When you draw people, I'm not so adverse in it, but you're doing a lot of portraits. I would say that. And you did one of Jesus. You did one of yourself that I've seen that are very unique, beautiful unto themselves, and very much bring out an emotion of an individual. A lot of times when you're looking at these. And by the way, you can take a look at these on therealxanderberkeley.com, therealxanderberkeley.com. So let me ask, because I have a child that's 8 that loves and uses art. I think lots of kids do, as an outlet, and he really gets a kick out of it and starts, his day, the homeschooling now, and the Monday morning is the first lesson, is his art lesson. That's the one he wants to do first. Is there something, and he may not be professional at it, of course, but certainly is there something you get out of it that's, you just described some of it, but that's therapeutic, and that is something that you would recommend, let's say, for other people that may not become professional at it, and they might be, but to encourage their children to get involved with art?
Yeah, I think so. Absolutely. I mean, for me, I've made it my life's goal to never grow up, I guess. Essentially, I make believe, I play pretend, and I do artwork. Your favorite things to do as an 8-year-old. But I think it can really teach you to look, and more than look, to really see, and see the world around you, and to in drawing people, I've always felt it's a reminder to observe others, and as an actor, that's so key. Instead of just making everything up out of your own, self-involvement, to go outside of your skin and take in the three-dimensionality and weight of another human being. And, I think that's one of the reasons why actors tend to be liberals by and large, because we're empathizers, and we have to act well. Generally, you have to be able to really put yourself in someone else's skin. And that takes observing people and caring about people in a weird way. Even if you're playing bad guys in real life, in order to do a decent job of bringing them to life, you've had to have really, extended yourself outside of yourself to take others in. And I think, that's what creates a kind of empathy for humanity, because you do that and you really get that we're all connected and
right.
We're all one. Because you try to bring also your three-dimensionality into the skin of another, so that you're thinking and feeling and moving in a world that is real.
But it really is an amazing skill to be able to do that by, it looks like mostly painting at little pastels, maybe, I think. What do you prefer with respect to art to use as your canvas?
I haven't even looked at this website. Someone just made it for me, so I'm not sure exactly what's up. But the ones that you've referenced seem to me, first of all, I think it's ironic. The Jesus painting was bought recently at a show I had in Chicago by Penn Jillette, who is a world famous
atheist. Yeah,
atheist. So I think there was a great irony in that. I made a Jesus that moved him. That's to want to have him in his life, and there's in that series of paintings, there's a lot of layers, a lot of time went into them. A time maybe that people that relied on painting strictly as their source of income wouldn't be able to invest. But because I have the luxury of being an actor for a living, I can try and experiment with things that others might not have the time or willingness, or even the expense of the materials involved. In oil painting, it's very rare. I'm sure it's advised strongly against doing what I do in the way of building up surfaces and layers. But I've done it as a process of learning about oil paint over the past 20 some odd years, 25 years I've been doing oil painting. And so I'm always experimenting with different mediums and different colors and trying to build up a history and layers, the way I think people are, like you said, the onion peel reference, that we are made up of layers as we get older, and just as our dimensionality is what it is. And so I've done a thing where I've built up layers and then excavated back through different, because I've also been a sculptor for forever. I'm familiar with those tools. And so to see the time that went into something and to show the layers, the different colors and textures, and these things have a sensuality to me and a dimensionality to me that has been really interesting to experiment with.
And we're having a great time here with Xander Berkeley, talking all things art at this point. We had Dr. Peter Weller from RoboCop and many others on as well. He's a Renaissance art professional, and he's his doctorate in that. So we've had some art discussions with him, but not from the artist's point of view. So it's nice to, in turn, hear the way you approach the subject. And I wish we had more time in this moment, but we will when we come back on Everything Old is New Again, to continue talking art and other things with the real Xander Berkeley and the real XanderBerkeley.com, BerkelEY. We'll be back right after this on Everything Old is New Again.
This is Everything Old is New Again, America's entertainment pop culture talk show with Douglas Viviani and David Cohen.
Wow, nice trick, Bubble Brain. And I bet the cheesy magician act really goes over big with the tourists.
You dare call Mysterio a magician? Fool! Mysterio is no illusionist playing parlor tricks. Mysterio is the master of the arcane arts.
Well, seems to me Mysterio is the master of talking about himself in the third person.
We shall see.
Welcome back to Everything Old is New Again. This is Douglas Viviani. That is the spectacular Spider-Man animated television series, and we just heard a little bit there from, is it the real Mysterio as opposed to the one that appeared in the movies? Anyway, the A version of Mysterio. And we have the gentleman that voiced that character with us, as you know, Xander Berkeley. I'll tell you, honestly, I'm looking at your face. We're on Zoom here while I play that clip, and a chill ran up my spine. I'll tell you why. The voice is so different that you create there for Mysterio that I'm saying to myself, holy smokes, did I do the right thing? Did I actually play a clip of him speaking? What's going on? Because you were sort of steadfast, straightforward. So let me ask you, certainly that was you. And if so, boy, it really is a different voice. It must be a whole different art form to be able to perform in an animated project, no?
Oh, absolutely. One of the things I referenced before, sorry, I haven't turned my notifications off.
That's okay.
The range, the widest possible range I can have in terms of the transformation I can make as an actor to help tell stories so that the audience is lost in this story and in that character instead of being constantly reminded of me from something else. So that's always been a thing of mine, which is a little bit of self-sabotage because you really don't get famous without becoming unmistakably identifiable. But that's always been my thrill, is the transformation. In the theater, I started out where the biggest joy for me was at when the subscription audience would come on opening night, and you'd have the little party with them afterwards, and then they would argue that was not you in the last play. No, that wasn't you. Come on. Yeah, that was me. And the range has always been the thing that the idea of sort of time travel and transmogrification, some transformation taking place, is the biggest sort of magical thrill for me in it. And then in animation, that's extended even further because you don't have to be constrained by your physicality. You can be like when I did Real Monsters, I got to be Snav and Urbab. And they're very different from me physically. And
thankfully,
in Gargoyles, I got to be an old Scottish gargoyle. And I just did an audition the other day for I shouldn't say which one because they'll feel like I'm counting on them hiring me. It would be a great one, but I had to be a certain working class guy who's an old timer, and suddenly from my episode of Heart to Heart, had this deep affection and wanted to honor Lionel Stander, who was in an early Polanski movie called Cul-de-sac. And there was a line that a friend of mine and I used to reference. And so I just had his voice in the ready from, he at one point reaches into Donald Pleasance, plays this great little rich guy who's got Jackie Bissett, a young, hot Jackie Bissett as his wife, and these gangsters take over in Cul-de-sac, and Stander is the lead gangster who's taken over the house, and Pleasance is being very fast. No, you mustn't do that. You shouldn't put your feet up. And he's like, at one point, he's a big guy. He just grabs the hat off of Pleasance's head. And he goes, "I'm being regular with you, and you're being snotty with me. Quit being snotty with me." And so that voice I just always found it charming, and suddenly like, okay, I've got to do that voice because people don't know him anymore.
Right.
And he was so brilliant, and I got to know him, after he'd been like this childhood kind of like hero in a weird kind of way. I love the obscure character actors, my father did too. We don't want to please our fathers, but
have you heard of the Carney Awards? Just as an aside, they sort of honor these obscure character actors now.
I won one the third year. I have a Carney Award.
Exactly. That's why I wanted to bring our audience along with that. It must be a real real kick to finally have an award of that nature named after Art Carney, who second Banana and all this.
Yeah, and Art really was a star, so it's a little different.
Right.
But I think it's great that his kid, two of his sons, I think, but certainly this other guy, it was just the one son and it was two other brothers who worked with his son to come up with this concept of this award to acknowledge the obscure character actors that transform and don't really necessarily want to make it all about them, but that make others look good in the process of helping to tell the story or being the adversary, the antagonist, or the villain, or whatever it is. Just to, it's a big part of the business. That the business, you never see them on talk shows. You
Right.
never see us. It's always the young hot thing and the big star, and whoever's in the lead role. Always, we've got some of the best stories. I mean, they
correct.
Really get some of us on the couch.
And that's why we have them on Everything Old is New Again, for sure, because it's the best location to explore all of this. I love also, just as an aside, I went to a honeymooners convention in the Feld Forum 20 years ago, and Art Carney's son came out and he brings out the hat, and he does the same with the Carney Awards. He brings the hat out so you can see the hat from the honeymooners 1953. Anyway, I'm running out of time, so I want to say thank you, but also what is on the horizon for us to see Xander Berkeley appear in?
Well, there were a few things. I'm sad for the couple of projects for the directors that they didn't get their big moment. We were about to, right this week, I think, it had the Tribeca Film Festival been going on, or I guess it was last week. We were going to have the premiere of a film called The Dark and the Wicked, which I was excited about. Brian Boitano's return to the realm of horror, and it really should be a cool film. And to be in Tribeca already bodes well. I haven't seen it yet, but I'm excited to see it. And the Wall of Mexico was a film that I did in Mexico and with some great people, and was very excited about it getting a theatrical release. It opened at South by Southwest, and it got a theatrical release. It was going to have its big premiere this month in New York, and I guess that's not going to be happening. So I feel bad for these guys. They work so hard to sort of get something together to make it happen, and then have it do well and get in these festivals or get a release. Another film called Dark Harbor, in which I also play I'm going through my priestly phase, but they're not terribly well. One actually might be a little evil because I think he might also be the devil.
Which movie is that? Dark and the Wicked?
Maybe.
Well, we'll leave it, so we have to watch all three to figure that out.
I collaborated with a spider on The Dark and the Wicked because I was playing an old Southern, minister, priest, and come up to a pickup truck in the opening scene, Michael Abbott, and a spider leapt off the truck onto my hat and stayed up there for the entire. And I was so pleased that Brian didn't make us cut and take because there's a big spider, and he stayed up there from all angles through the entire scene, built a little nest up on top, but kept just crawling right under the rim, and there's a whole sequence where there's spiders in the movie.
So it worked.
And, oh my God, that was a good bad omen.
That's tremendous. Well, let's hope. You never know. They are releasing, I don't know how long this whole thing's going to last, but they are releasing, they're pushing release dates back, but they're also releasing sometimes straight to the pay-per-view. Disney's even doing that. I think they did on Trolls and whatever. And It really would, maybe if that catches on, if you have to do that, if you're searching for a movie, search the word dark and see if you'll find Dark Harbor or The Dark and the Wicked. Maybe they'll be released that way. If not, down the line, maybe they'll be released theatrically. You're just got to keep an eye out for these.
Dark and the Wicked is going to be doing other festivals in one form or another. I can't wait to see it. Tribeca bodes well for anything, just like... Right. South by Southwest did for the Wall of Mexico, and that one is going to get released, and definitely keep an eye out for the Wall of Mexico. It's a smart, interesting comedy, dramedy, and we're bringing film production to Maine. There's a diaspora out of Hollywood, and I've got two different properties in addition to the one where we live that I'm developing for film production.
Well, that's tremendous. That's a great idea. Film production and television came to Long Island a little ways back in a couple of shows, and it's exciting to see it expand out to different venue than staying in the one location out west, So we look forward to that as well. And I guess what we could do is we could keep an eye out for what you're doing through, through the Real Xander.
New website. Yeah, I'm going to get much more involved with that website, both as an artist, as a producer, and an actor. So watch for more there.
Yes, that's probably a good release. So we'll announce it again. The Real Xander, of course, Xander, Berkeley, Berkler. E-L-E-Y, you got to spell it right, .com to get onto the website. I think it'd be a great idea. Mr. Berkeley, we've had a tremendous time with you. We really enjoyed it. The time just flies. So I'll put this on the air. We would love to have you back at any time. Feel free to contact us if you'd like to do so. We may actually reach out to you and harass you. But
I really enjoyed it as well. You're great. And I'm sorry I missed David. I look forward. Hope everything is good with him, and look forward to talking to him down the line as well.
Terrific. Thank you. Yes, we'll hold you to that. Now we've got you on tape, so we'll hold you to that. But we really made some radio fun times here, and I thank you so much for your time. We'll be back next week to continue talking all things entertainment, pop culture on Everything Old is New Again. You've been listening to Everything Old is New Again, America's pop culture entertainment talk show. Find us on the web at everythingoldisnewagain.biz. That's .biz.
See you next week. Same bat time, same bat station.